book of Joshua, chapter 14. Joshua, chapter 14. And then I want us to look in Psalms 37 at one verse as well. Psalms 37, Joshua 14. You can stand. We'd like you to, if you can, at this time. Joshua chapter 14. We read from verse 6 through verse 15. And then Psalms 37, verse 4. Joshua 14, verse 6. Then the children of Judah came unto Joshua and Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said unto him, Thou knowest the thing that the Lord said unto Moses, the man of God, concerning me and thee in Kadesh Barnea. 40 years old was I when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land. And I brought him word again, as it was in mine heart. Nevertheless, my brethren that went up with me made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance, and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake his word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 85 years old. As yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war, both to go out and to come in. Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in that day, for thou heardest in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord said. And Joshua blessed him and gave him to Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, Hebron, for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Gabel, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, unto this day, because that he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. Now let's turn over to Psalms 37 and look at verse 4. Verse 4. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Father, in Jesus' name, I thank and praise you, Lord, for your word that's forever settled in heaven. Lord, we thank you that you not only said that your word was pure and true, but you said it would all come to pass, and that there would not be one jot or tittle fail until all come to pass. Father, we can trust you today because everything you've written in your word is true. And we can trust it. We can rest on it. We can, Lord, just lay down and know that everything is going to be all right because you promised us that. Father, help us today as we go into this message that we would allow you to speak to us. And Lord, help us, our hearts would be open to receive your word. And Lord, not just be receivers of it and hearers of it, but doers of the precious word of God. I pray now, as always, that you hide me behind the cross. Help me to decrease as you increase in the message. Help me not in any way to block the view of the cross today. But may I magnify you, and may we see Jesus in his name. Amen. 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 Thank you. Be seated. I want to speak this morning on stop whining and start shining. Stop whining and start shining. You know, we nothing to whine about. If we're believers, if we're followers of God. You know, when we look at any situation, we see it either from a positive perspective or from a negative perspective according to our attitude of mind. That's the way we see things. Most people around you will see things from a negative perspective. And they will always see the glass of water half empty instead of half full. This is why if you are a person with big dreams and a positive attitude, you can't share your dreams with many people because they can't understand where you're coming from. Because they will only discourage you. They don't have the same dreams. They're not connected the same way. And that's why if there is a dream in your soul that you're going forward for and trying to achieve, then you're going to have to not share it with everybody. I've seen that many times, how people will tear other people down when they start telling them what they're going to do or what they're going to become. God plants these dreams in our desires. He plants them deep down in our soul. And these desires are something that God has planted there, that He intends for us to follow through and achieve. He has placed them there for us to take them and cultivate them and go forward with them, and He is going to bless us to achieve them. But then what happens is that we have them stolen from us. But some said, as we read there, delight thyself in the Lord, and He shall give thee the desires of thine heart. The word delight means to take pleasure in. You know, let the Lord be your whole life, what you live for, what you take pleasure in. He is everything to you. David said, the Lord is more to me than my necessary food. He is more important to me. And we have to put Him in that place. And if we do put Him in that place, He said that He will give us the desire of our heart. Now what's He talking about? He's talking about that deep desire that God has placed in our heart. Because if you are delighting yourself in the Lord, you are only going to desire that would please Him or honor Him. Now when you get away from delighting yourself in the Lord, then you're going to start desiring things that are fleshly, things that are not good, things that will not honor God. And He didn't promise to give you that. But He promised to give you the desire of your heart as you delight yourself in Him. And it's His desire that He's placed there. I often tell people when I am counseling with them or encouraging them, don't let anyone steal your dream. Because there are dream stealers out there. You always have people telling you why you can't do something. Always have them telling you that. Why you can't do that. Very few people will be an encourager. Will tell you how or why, or will encourage you to pursue that. You go for it. Because if you have a desire for it, you go for it. God will see to it that you can achieve that He has placed in your heart to desire. There are some dream robbers. Let me give you 4 dream robbers that, if you're not careful, will rob you of your dream. One is circumstances. You see, there are all kinds of circumstances that we have to face. Everybody faces circumstances. And if we get our eyes off of the Lord, and if we fail to realize that for me to live is Christ, then we are going to allow the circumstances to take us away from trust in God, and it will cause us to lose our dream. Everybody fails. But folks, God is greater than circumstances. God will see you through you through it. So don't let circumstances rob you of your dream. And then people will sure rob you of your dream. They're probably the worst. Because if you start telling people what you're going to do and what you have a plan to do or what you have a goal to do, they will get mad. Some of them will get mad and think you're trying to be some kind of a snob. Others will say, are you crazy? You can't do that. What do you even think about that for? And others will just kind of snigger and laugh as then they don't take you seriously. And what they do is discourage you from going ahead and pursuing what God has placed in you to pursue. I had one young man, my first cousin's son. When he was young, he was very, very bashful. He wouldn't talk to anybody. He just followed his dad around, and you would never, if looking at him as just who he is, you'd never imagine him doing anything. But he had a desire to fly. I mean, that was his whole life. He loved planes. He had a desire to fly. And he was going to be a pilot. And he came, his dad brought him over to my office one day and I talked to him. And then I met him in the Walmart after that, and I talked to him. And I encouraged him. I said, Teddy, don't you ever let anybody tell you what you can't do. Don't you ever listen to anybody that will tell you you can't do something. Because if you believe you can do it, and you go forward believing, and you trust God, you can accomplish anything that you can believe you can accomplish. Amen. And I said, you go for it, brother. I believe in you. I believe in you. And guess what? He told his teacher, he was so excited about being a pilot, he told his teacher. And you know what his school teacher did? She said, all in your dreams, boy. Yeah, that's all in your dream. And just kind of laughed at it. You ain't ever going to be no pilot. And that really hurt him. And he come talk to me. I told him, I give him some encouragement. And you know what he did? He went to flight school. He became a commercial airline pilot, flying the big commercial jet. And the newspaper in the town that he lived put it in the paper and wrote up about what his teacher said and all that. And here he stood by the plane flew. You know, I thought, man, that come back on me, though. Yeah, you want to discourage him? Who's discouraging people now? And all of those that want to discourage him, they still back there with a word, hadn't done anything. Don't listen to people that haven't done anything try to tell you why you can't do anything. Because if they were going to do anything, they'd be doing it. Amen. And you have to trust God and go for your dream. Go for your dream. God will give you whatever He places in your heart to dream about. And then today, Teddy, he flew for the commercial airlines for a long time, and now he flies for Clayton. He flies their private jets. He said, man, that's just like not having a job. He just works like half of the time, and he gets to go everywhere with all of the Clayton officials and gets to spend time out where, and it's amazing. He is such a great man. I remember his mother every time she sees me. John, you remember talking to him? You remember when you talked to him? You remember when you encouraged him? I said, yeah. They see what he done. I said, I know what he done. God will allow you to do whatever you can believe Him for and go forward. And that's what was happening here, you see. You had Caleb who believed God. He believed God back 45 years earlier, and he never got what he believed God for until now. But now God has kept him in the same health as he was 45 years earlier, and He's given him that's material things.
Yeah.
If you get your eyes on material things and you begin to desire things like that, and your eyes off of the Lord, that will cause you to forfeit your dreams that God has placed with you. Because you can't love the world and love God at the same time. This world is always opposed to God. And then there's a fourth thing that'll rob you, and that's worry. You can't worry about things if you're going to pursue your dreams. Because worry is a roadblock. It's a stopper. It's something that discourages. It's something that keeps you down. It's something that pulls you aside. And he said to be anxious for nothing. Don't worry about anything. But with prayer and thanksgiving, you are to ask God and trust Him and believe Him for whatever you need. Barnabas was an encourager, and he encouraged Paul when everybody wanted to get rid of him. Wow. And he encouraged the people to accept Paul. Now, when God instructed Moses here in these verses not these verses, but the verses over in Numbers, when this story actually begins, we need to, I guess, go there and bring you up to date with what's happening here. When Moses led the children of Israel to the brink of Jordan to go into the promised land, the first thing God told him to do was to take one man from each tribe, one of the chiefs of the tribe, one of the heads of the tribe, and send them into the land for 40 days to search out the land and bring a report back of what kind of land it was, what all was there, and everything. Well, they picked 12 men, one from each tribe. And they also picked Joshua and Caleb. Joshua was from the tribe of Ephraim, and Caleb from the tribe of Judah. When they got into the land and they looked it over, they saw the Anakim, or the giants, in the land. And when they were traveling through there, they also went down to Eshcol, and they cut a cluster of grapes to bring back to show the people how the fruit was, and the vegetables, and they brought pomegranates and all of that. Well, when they got back with this cluster of grapes that it took 2 men to carry on their shoulders on that pole, and they got back, they showed them how blessed that land was, what was all there. But the problem was, when they got back, the whiners showed up. And you only had 2 that shined out of the whole 12. And that's about normal. That's about the way it is if you get in any crowd. And even in a church crowd, you'll have about 2 out of 12 that will really, really be the shiners and not the whiners. Now, what were they doing? When they came back, Caleb, first thing he said, let's go take the land. God's given it to us. It's a land flowing with milk and honey. It's a great land. Let's go take it. God had promised it to them already. He done give it to them. He told them that before they left Egypt, that he'd give them the land. Well, here come the whiners. Oh, Lord. There's giants over there. There are giants over there. And out of the 12, only 2 were shiners, and that was Joshua and Caleb. And they believed that God would do what He said He would do. And they were willing to go forward and take the land. And the 10 spies that were from the heads of the other tribes, couldn't agree with that. So whiners will always tell you why you can't do something. Giants are too big. We look like grasshoppers on their side. You see, they were looking at the giants instead of God. And anytime you get something something between you and God, it looks bigger than God does. You've got to keep God close and everything else back. And that's what they didn't do. The giants were right in their face. And where God should have been, and God was way out there. Oh, the giants, we can't do it. And then whiners always have an excuse. They said, we can't take our wives and children into that land. If we do, they'll be slaughtered by these giants. And whiners always say it's too difficult. Even if we could get through, it would take a lot of effort. And then we may not be able to finish. So we just rather not start. Whiners will say, why did I ever listen to you and come this far? I should have stayed in Egypt. That's what they said. That's what they told them. Whiners say, don't bother me. I'm satisfied where I am. Whiners say, are you crazy? You talk like a foolish person. Whiners will say, I have too many other things I need to do, and I don't have anybody to help me do them. And then the whiners will say, I just feel too bad. I just feel bad. I just don't think I can do it. Then whiners will say, don't bother me with your problems. I have my own problems. You ever heard that? I've heard that. Oh, I just got to. And Lord have mercy. Don't ask anybody how they feel. Some people, there's some people I wouldn't dare ask how they feel. They tell you about 2 hours of it. Yeah, I know people all my life that were dying for 40 years. Every time you saw them, they felt so bad they were dying. They had every kind of disease, everything was wrong with them, and they lived to be up to 90 years old, and they still complaining about how bad dogs they were. Never enjoy life. They're always thinking about how bad they feel. That's you whiners, folks. And then whiners say, I've got a problem. Whiners say, you talking about doing something like that, and I have problems I need help with. I don't have nobody to help me. They always want somebody to help. I wonder if I get somebody to do this for me. Who can I get to do this for me? Who can I find to do this for nothing for me? And they don't care to use you. They use you, amen. They'll use you, but they don't want to offer you anything. And I saw them, and when I was in business, we do things for people for free that a lot of times they needed help. But then you had people that you didn't dare do any business with. If they wanted you to do, you didn't dare doing business with them. Because they would expect you to do it for free, or they would gripe and complain about everything you did and you didn't do it right. So there are people that are like that. I tell people when they do, I said, if I can't pay you, I want you to do it. Amen. I want to pay you for what I get done. Amen. That's just the way I am. I believe you should pay your way. Amen. You should pay your way. I don't expect people to come and do things for me for free. It's their time. They got to take their time. They got to go away from something they were doing. And in one of my books, I guess I don't remember which one it was, but in one of my books, I put it in there. If you have got children and son-in-law or daughter-in-law that have businesses and they are contractors or something, I said, don't expect them or don't always be looking for them or calling them to do something for you for nothing. Amen. Because that's their business. That's the way they make the living. And if you want to contract them to get something done, you have them to figure a price and you pay them or somebody else will pay them. Amen. That's the way that should work. Now, sometimes they may want to offer to do something. They may want to help you out and all, but don't expect them. Don't put them on the spot. Don't use them. Don't try to just use people. I don't know why I got off on that. I just did. if I don't know why did. So whiners are always looking for somebody to do something for them. They never are saying, oh, yes, I'll be glad to do that. Now let's look at the difference between shiners. Shiners say, let me get at it. I'm ready, let's do it. Shiners are always ready. Shiners say, get in, get out, or get run over, I'm going forward. They're ready to go. Shiners say, don't give me something easy, give me something hard. Amen. That's what John Kennedy said in '63. He said, we're going to the moon in this decade. Not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Amen. Because something hard is a challenge. And some people are only excited about doing something that's challenging. Amen. And they'll get involved if it's a challenge. And then the shiners say, I'm not coming on what I can do. I'm coming on what God can do. And that's the way we have to look at it. Shiners say it's not up to me, it's up to God. And shiners do not ask for anyone's approval. They don't have to have 4 or 5 people giving their approval before they do something. They'll do it. They'll go ahead. Now look at some of these men that we can claim are shiners. There's Caleb. Look at him here. He's 85. 85. 45 years earlier, he was 40. And God had promised him that mountain. Now, it wasn't because of his fault that he didn't get the mountain. You see, sometimes there are hindrances that are not our fault of receiving what we can receive, but we can't get it then. It'll be a later date because there is a hindrance. Now, what God did, because of the 10 that refused to go in the land, God never allowed any of them to go in at that time. And he said, you're going to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years until this whole generation dies off. And all of you that refuse to go in, none of you are going to see the land except Joshua and Caleb. So here's what we see. 40 years later, 45 now, because they've been taking the land and getting that handled. 45 years later, God has kept the man for the land and the land for the man. And he's still just as strong as he was back 45 years earlier. And look at Caleb in verse 12. Now therefore, give me this mountain. Don't give me one of the little low places. I want this mountain where the giants are. All right. You see, in this mountain where the Anakim live, this is where the giants live. Caleb said, give me this mountain. I want the one that's the hardest to take. That's what I want. And they gave him that mountain. And he said, if so be the Lord will be with me, then I shall be able to drive them out as the Lord said. And you look over there in chapter 15, verse 14. And Caleb drove thence the 3 sons of Anak, Shishai, Ammon, Taman, the children of Anak. He drove them out. You see, he was willing to do whatever it took to get what God had promised him. Now you can't go forward for God and be lazy. Amen. Well, God's not in laziness. A bit more than he is anything. God's not in that. Well, you can't go forward and be somebody that is interested only in yourself. All right. Because he didn't do this for himself. Because you notice the city that he took was Hebron. And if you continue to read the scriptures, you'll find that Caleb gave this city back to the Levites to be a city of refuge. Caleb just liked the challenge of going and taking something for God. And we should be that way. We should have such a desire to see God do something that we're willing to go and do whatever God will allow us to do. Amen. Don't get discouraged, but go forward. I think of little David when he came out visiting his brothers, and there was Goliath, mocking and defying and laughing at Israel. David came out with that load of food to feed them, and there they stood, trembling in their shoes, just like the rest of Israel. And David came down, he started talking to Goliath, his brother, his oldest brother, and he got upset, because he saw David was questioning them why they didn't somebody do something with this uncircumcised Philistine. And Elijah said, "What do you come down here for? Just to see what's going on? Who's taking care of them few little sheep you have up there you've been handling?" They could only see him as taking care of just a few sheep that Daddy gave him permission to care for. They didn't see him as anything important, but they thought he was kind of mocking at them. And David said, "Is there not a cause? There's a cause that you don't allow this to happen. Because we serve the God of Israel. Yeah. We are his people. He's an almighty God. And here you are with a Philistine, uncircumcised, heathen, pagan. You allow him to mock at our God." Yeah. And what did he do? He told them he'd take care of it. Yeah. And he went out there. He first talked to Saul. Saul wanted to give him his armor, and he couldn't even hardly wear it. It's so heavy, he didn't even walk in and put it on. He said, "I can't function in that." Now listen to me. Our war is not carnal. You can't fight our war in the world's weapons, with the world's armor and the world's weapons, because it's spiritual. So David went back, and he got his sling, and he picked up 5 stones, and he walked up before Goliath. Goliath came out laughing. He said, "What am I, a dog, that you come to me with a stick or something? What am I?" Well, David said, "You come to me with all of your swords and shields and all of that." And he said, "I come to you in the name of the Lord God of Israel." And Goliath, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take your head today and sever it from your body, because God has given you into my hands. And David swung that sling, and the first stone, he only needed one. The first stone, he placed it right between that big giant's eyes, and he fell dead right there. David went up and took his own sword and cut his head off and carried it back. He said, "There you are. Why ain't some rest of you done that? Yeah, why ain't some of the rest of you stood up and did something for God?" And we see that all the time. We see people that have sat around and do nothing and stand for nothing and offer nothing and just allow everything to go on and will not take a stand for anything. We've got to stand firm and stand for truth. Amen. And then we see Jeremiah. They put him in the stocks. Jeremiah preached judgment. They didn't like it. They didn't want it. They took old Jeremiah and put him in the stocks right at the gate of the city where everybody could see him when they came in. Here he sat right in the stocks. They laughed at him. The kids come up, mauled at him. There was Jeremiah, that great prophet. Jeremiah said, "I'm not going to preach anymore, God. Not going to do it. You didn't tell me it was this way. You didn't tell me about all this stuff when I started. So I'm not going to mention your name anymore." The Bible said the longer he sat there, greater that fire began to burn in his life. And he said, I couldn't stand it. He said, I had to go, and I just couldn't stay. And Jeremiah, when he got out of them stocks, he went back to preaching the same message that put him in the stocks. Because when you have the fire of God in your soul, you're going to go and stand for what God has placed you in the stand. You're not giving in to this world. You're not giving in to this foolishness. And then there was Ezekiel. God had Ezekiel as the watchman on the wall. And his wife was the only person cared for. He had a wife that loved him, and he loved her. And one day, God told Ezekiel, I'm going to take your wife. And he says, I don't want you to weep for her. I don't want you to show any emotion. I don't want you to do anything, but the next morning when you go home, the night and your wife is dead, the next morning I want you to get up, wash your face, put your clothes on, and go back out and do the same thing you've always done. Ezekiel said, I went home, and there was the desire of my eyes. She was dead. And Ezekiel wrote this in his book. In the evening, my wife died, but in the morning, I did as I was commanded. Folks, there's no place to lay down or quit. There's no place to stop. There's no place to get discouraged. There's no place to bow out. There's no place to turn it over to somebody else. We have to go forward and to be faithful, Almighty God. There was John, bold in all, exiled on the Isle of Patmos. And he was there. They placed him out there to make him suffer and to die alone. But you know what the Bible said? John was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. He heard a noise behind him. And he turned around, and there stood the Lord, come to visit John on that Isle of Patmos. And the greatest days of John's life was on that island when they throw him out trying to make him suffer. And it was there that he spent time with the Lord that showed him the past, present, and the future. And he wrote the book of the Revelation from that meeting with the Lord. You see, this world can't do anything to you. But God doesn't allow it. And if he does allow it, he's going to be there with you in your time of suffering. The three Hebrew children, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were ordered to bow down when they heard the music. And they heard the music and they didn't bow. And they came back and said, Lord, we think you misunderstood what was said. We want to give you another chance. You misunderstood. They said, no, we don't need another chance, King. We heard you very clearly the first time. Because we know that our God is able to deliver us. But if not, we're still not going to bow to your enemy. So what we must do is make up our mind that we are not going to bow to this world. We're going to be faithful regardless of where God saves us from the punishment or whether we have to go through it. Because God didn't save them from the fire. He saved them in the fire. Amen. And sometimes we may have to go into the fire. But God was there with them in the fire. When they looked in the fire, the king said, wait a minute here. What's going on? Didn't we throw 3? I see 4. I see 4 in there walking around. Not walking around. And they opened that furnace and they walked right out. Didn't even have a smell of smoke on them. I mean, just as clean as they could be. Why? Because their God was able and did deliver them in the fire. I think of Samson in Judges 16. You know how Samson was. You know how he was God's giant that judged Israel and saved them from the Philistines. And then the Philistines Philistines got him because he shared his story with the woman that he shouldn't have shared it with, because she was in with them. And they cut his hair, and it lost his strength. They took him out, they beat him, they blinded him, burned out his eyes, put him to pulling a needle like a mule, tied him to that thing. You've seen one of these salt room mules or something, and a horse or a mule. That's what he was doing. He's doing that. And they thought he was through. Samson's finished. They were having a great festival. All of the Philistines there. Don't have him, but there were many there. And Samson sat in there, and there was a little boy came up before Samson. Samson said, "Son, come here just a minute. Could you help me? I'm blind. Could you help me find the pillars of the temple?" And this little boy led Samson over there till he could get his hands on the pillars. And when he got his hands on them, he said, "God, strengthen me one more time. May a vein in your eyes." And Samson pushed those pillars down and collapsed that whole building. And the Bible said he killed more Philistines in his death than he did all time in his life. Let me say this: don't ever count anyone out. Never count them out. Because you don't know what God will do through them, even in the last moments of their life. Never count anyone out. Amen. And then there's another thing. Never doubt someone. Never doubt that God can do something with somebody that we see and look at as being not usable. Shamgar. There's only 2 verses talking about Shamgar. Judges 3:31 and Judges 5:6. He was nobody that anybody knew. Just probably an old farmer. And he was out one day, and God just gave him a desire to do something. Now it says that in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael, the highways were unoccupied and the travelers walked through byways. What it's saying is that the Philistines and the robbers and all of these folks were so many that they were always on the highway robbing everybody. So nobody traveled the highways, they'd go the back roads. And Shamgar noticed that. So we can't even travel on our roads for getting robbed and things. And then it says that Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and delivered Israel. He was out one day, he got enough of it. He only had an ox goad. He was holding his ox to get him where he was going with an ox cart. And he, at that time, knew that God needed a man to step up and do something. And Shamgar took that ox goad and killed 600 Philistines and delivered Israel. And got the highways opened up again so they could travel. Don't ever look at somebody and doubt that God can use them. Because He can use anybody that will allow Him to use them. I don't care who you are. Just allow God to have your life and He can do mighty things through anybody, whoever you are. Praise His holy name. I need to be quit. I'm done. Preach, don't tell them how long. There's the last thing I just want to mention. God is always how you have failed, no matter how you messed up, God's always the God of another chance. Aren't you glad of that? I'm so glad of that. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't be here. Amen. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't that God is a God of another chance. Look at John Mark. You know, John Mark went on the mission field with Paul and Barnabas. He ready to go. He had it in his eye. Oh, he burning to get on that mission field. Well, they decided to let him come. First place they got to without any controversy, John Mark said, we'll go back home. Just don't think I like it that way. This wasn't what I signed up for. This is not for me. And he went back home, he quit. And that's why Paul and Barnabas separated, and Paul went with Silas the next time, because Barnabas won't take John back again. He said, no, ain't going to me. He quit on us. But did Mark get a second chance? Oh yeah, because when we look in the scriptures, we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He was able in the end to write one of the Gospels that we have in the Word of God. That man that flunked out and didn't continue on the mission, but God's the God of another chance. I don't care who you are, who you've been. He'll give you another chance. Peter got another chance. He messed up bad. If you look through the Bible, you'll find that most people in the scriptures messed up. Yes. But God gave them another chance. Yes. And they came out and did great things for God. Yes. Don't count anybody out, and don't count anybody as not qualified or not able. God can do with whoever He chooses to do it with. So just praise Him and go forward and believe that God's going to do great things, and we're not going to whine, we're going to shine and go forward for Him. Amen. Hallelujah. Well, that's it. I better stop. I'll be going on forever. Thank you, Lord. Let's stand together. There may be somebody here that needs a prayer or something, and officers come to the front. If you need to come forward for any reason, you can do that now. We're going to have a prayer. Then, but if you're here and God has spoken to your heart, I want to ask you today to just come and give it to God. Lay it all in God's hand. If you're here and you think that you're unusable, don't believe it. If you're here and you think God's finished, don't believe it. Because God can do with you whatever He chooses to. While we have this music playing, if you want to come right now, you come. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank and praise you, Lord, that you have given us this opportunity again to be in your house. Thank you, Lord, for your word and for all of these experiences that these men have faced, and all the writing about them, showing us, Lord, just who you are and how you work with people. Father, I pray today if there's a one here that needs to come, that you'll draw them to yourself. If there's a one here that is lost, draw them to yourself, Father. And Lord, we'll give you the